So let's see what else we can do on the mix to improve. I think the synths are a little bit too loud, so I'm gonna try to mix it a little bit better to the kick drum. And closing all of these tabs here, giving me a little bit of a better overview. Closing the drums. We have the kick drum here. So let's see how it sounds like. Sometimes I just like to pick some presets to start from and see and taste a little bit how it works in the mix, and then I just start to change things within that preset because it gives me a good starting point from the result where I want to go. I'm going to add the bass to it. This piano has no sidechain, which is not a great idea. It takes away so much transient that it is actually interfering with the kick drum. I think that is better. I think we already have a little bit of a better kick bass going on here, and I did not even look at the bass just yet. Feels like it's a little bit more consistent. There's a little more presence in the mix, and the only real thing I've done for now is changing some of the settings here on the compressor. Playing around with your attack is going to give you some workspace for the transient of your kick. Now where you lower the attack of the kick drum, you'll lose some of the transient. And now when you give more attack, it obviously lets through more of the attack. Just play around with it, and then the same for the release. You don't want to open up the release too much with the kick drum because then it loses its functionality. And then I think the glue is a good plug-in to put some aggressive compression on the kick drum. If you want to use different ones, that's fine too. This is personal preference, and this is the one that I have in my lazy channel strip. So what else do we have going on? A small dip here in the FabFilter, and I like to go to Logic's EQ, and everyone really laughs at me for still using this one, but I just like the workflow of it. If you use a lot of these channel EQs, make sure you switch off the analyzer here because it will drown your CPU. As I increased some of the frequencies there in the kick drum on the low end, I always have to make sure that I'm not going too loud on the master, because where I boost something, I also have to get rid of something. Don't forget that you can not always just keep boosting all the frequencies, because then you're going to end up with a master that is going to lose its punch. I like it a little better. What else do we have? We have the bass. A good idea is always to make sure that the bass is mono, and therefore we're going to go for BX control, where you can select until what frequency you want to have your track mono. So if I would turn this all the way up, my entire track is going to be mono. Now, it's a personal preference, but I believe that, you know, everything that I need, everything, let's say under 100, maybe 150, does not necessarily have to be stereo. You can even drive it up to 250 or even higher. But I believe you can also just check it out by just putting it on your master and just follow your ears. I think the kick drum can be a little bit less loud, so I'm going to just move it back to a couple of like 3 dB. Okay, now we have made our bass mono. We can move on to the actual sound of the bass. And what I like to do is I look at the frequencies, or I actually am going to use the FabFilter for this one. FabFilter Q2. I'm going to try to see if there are extreme EQ spikes in some of the notes. As you produce a progressive house song where you play different keys in the bass, every bass note has its own frequency, right? So you have, like, let's say for example, a G, a low G can have, let's say, 45 hertz dominant. Then when you play a high F, it can be, let's say, 87 hertz dominant. And sometimes some of these higher bass notes can really spike into your EQ, and it can dominate your mix. So what I like to do is see if there are some extreme pikes in my bass going on. Well, as you can see here on the frequency spectrum, it's all quite consistent. There's not one note that is really spiking up my EQ here at some frequency. So I think I don't need too many changes, and we can check if there's some phasing going on by volume changes, but I think we're almost there already. You see that almost all the notes, they hit this perfect bar here. Some notes maybe cross it a little bit, but nothing to be concerned about. So the sub bass, we're good. You see what's going on here. You see that the higher note has a little bit more volume here. So if we really want to play it safe, we can lower this one here just a little bit. If it's really necessary, I'm not really sure, to be honest, but there's also other ways to do it in FabFilter, where you can just select the key that it's playing here under the piano roll. But I just like to draw it with my own hand, but you can just select the key that it's playing, and as you can see, it is playing this C sharp. I'm just going to move back the gain a little bit. Do you hear that's going on? Quite dominant. So we make a little bit of a bell here downwards, so we are 100% safe that it's not interfering too much. If it's going to make the difference in your mix down, obviously these are very, very small adjustments to your mix that can in the end give you a little bit more air and tightness over the overall mix. And what I do here when I layer these stacks here, these sounds, this one has a lot of portamento and glide to it. And this one doesn't have too much glide, so we can have to, oh, and I think I know why. Because they're all small notes. And let's see if we can get that glide in. There you go. It sounds like it's more one bass sound now by making sure that the glide of the Spire top bass is kind of similar to the Nexus one. Now with Nexus you're limited to steps there where the Spire is not limited to steps. Therefore I think that for glide the Spire is a little bit easier to adapt. But you know, if you really want to change it in Logic, when you go to portamento section here, modulation, you can change the speed of it. Always make sure that you use poly, trigger, or legato, because when it's set to off, obviously it's not doing anything. So, what else do we have? Let's see if we have some sidechain going on here, that none of these transients are interfering with the transient of the kick. They're still a little bit loud, but we're gonna fix that in just a bit. I think the bass is fine for now. Some small fixes and some small pikes and EQing going on there. We made sure that the portamento glide was similar, so it gives some feeling of like unity in the bass. The piano, we fixed some of the sidechain, making sure that it leaves the transients. With the chords, we're going to check out levels and that the sidechain is going to set right, because if you have different sidechain settings over along the mix, it can sometimes sound a little bit messy. There where you always need more sidechain on the bass because of its frequency, you can have a little bit of a less sidechain on higher instruments, as long as it does not have a completely different pattern where it's going to sound messy in the overall tightness of the mix.